Welcome back to another video. So today we are back to talk more Jujutsu Kaisen. So I've talked about Jujutsu Kaisen in a few weeks, ever since the whole Takuba vs Kenjaku fight, because of the whole YouTube stuff that I've been going through. So it's finally time to get back into talking about the manga. We're going to be reviewing the last 3 chapters, which are 244, 245, and 246. JJK is also on a break next week, so this is why I'm going to be able to get this stuff out now. And whatever hype stuff that comes out next week, I'll be able to review it when it comes out. But I want to talk about these chapters. I think the fight right now is really, really cool. Right now it's Sukuna versus basically the whole group of everybody else in the JJK High. But there's some things that I definitely dislike and don't like about this fight so far. And it has to do with Judge Man. You probably saw by the title. Judge Man is probably another one of the biggest frauds in JJK, bro. I'm so mad with how Gige did Judge Man. But we're going to talk about that when we get to that. But not Higuruma. I want you to know that now. Higuruma's fire. Higuruma's fine. But what they did to Judge Man, I'm not liking. But before we get to that, we actually have to get through the chapters. So we're going to start with 244. So 244 continues off from when we saw Higuruma and Itadori about to jump Sukuna. And then we actually flash back where Kusakabe basically is explaining the plan of how they're going to take care of Kenjaku and Sukuna. And this moment, a lot of people didn't like this chapter because there's a lot of talking. It was a lot of dialogue, especially from Kusakabe. But also we get like confirmation about certain things. For example, how Miwa can't grip a sword or hold a sword anymore because of Shibuya. Remember when she tried to attack Kenjaku, and she technically made a binding vow when she tried to slash Kenjaku by saying like, I'm gonna put everything, my past and future, into this blade or whatever. So now she's just useless Miwa, just there, can't do anything. People like Kamo decided to flee. He said he's not gonna be like join the fight, he's actually going to leave. We also get a moment where Kashima is getting mad at Kusakabe for saying like, oh well, like y'all acting like I'm about to lose and shit like that, and Hikari has to like calm him down. But I think it's funny that Kashima really thought he was gonna win, bro, which I understand. Like, I understand why he felt that way, but the way that everyone just knew that he was going to lose, and Kashima got mad about that, and the only person that could hold Kashima back was the person that beat him, which is Hikari. I thought that was really funny. But this is when they all come up with the plan for Higuruma to use Judge Man to confiscate Sukuna's curse technique. And they have like a whole moment where they explain the plan of how it would work and how Judge Man will probably declare Sukuna guilty. And so after they all explain the plan, we actually cut back to the present where we get to see a bunch of like crows try to attack Sukuna from Meme, and it obviously misses him. Higuruma and Itadori try to jump Sukuna. They try to attack him, and even like Itadori's landing hits on Sukuna, and Sukuna's not taking damage, but he's just like surprised, like whoa, like Itadori got way stronger. Everybody's getting way stronger. And then Higuruma says out loud like it's time for a do-over, and he activates his domain expansion, brings back them into the trial, and they're gonna basically do a retrial on what Higuruma tried to do to Itadori back in the Calling Game arc, where Itadori was put under suspicion of murdering everybody in Shibuya. And basically they learned from that trial that it wasn't Itadori, it was actually Sukuna, and so they're gonna do a retrial to see if they can get Sukuna the guilty verdict. And so that's the end of 244, right? And then we go to 245. This is where like I had huge problems, because I'm telling you, when 244 came out, I was so hyped to see what was going to happen. I was like, oh man, we're going to get like a Phoenix Wright thing. Like, oh my god, Judge Man's going to have to take his ability. That means they're actually going to have a chance of fighting Sukuna without his curse technique. And then something happens, and I'm going to talk about it and why I have problems with it. But let's get into 245, right? So 245, right, doesn't actually start off with like the court case. It actually starts off with Hikari and Urumi continuing their fight. And they're fighting for a bit, you know, punching each other, ripping off each other's, not really ripping off each other's arms, but Urumi like knocking out Hikari's like arm, and then being impressed by Hikari's reverse curse technique on how he's able to like just heal so fast. And then we also see like Hikari get like really good hits on Urumi, and then basically both of them are like talking to each other about how they're about to like tee up and shit. And so that's the end of the fight, right? Well, from now, like they start teeing up, and then it actually cuts back away to what's happening with Higuruma and Itadori and Sukuna. And we go back to the court case where Judge Man basically says that Itadori stands accused of mass murder in Shibuya, and then Higuruma explaining like what the court is, like what the case is, and also for Sukuna, because he has to explain his ability to Sukuna. And so he starts explaining the ability to Sukuna, but also trying to think about like, okay, there's no way that Sukuna should be able to get out of this. Like Judge Man should be able to determine that he's the one that's guilty. There's no crazy evidence. There's no like crazy way to get out of this. And then while he's trying to explain it to Sukuna, Sukuna's just like, enough, bro. I'm done. I don't want to hear this anymore. He says, I heard the domain's rules when I was inside the boy. I'm only interested in the sword. Like, I do not care. So let's get this over with. And then Judgment instantly declares him guilty and says confiscation, death penalty. This is exactly what they want, because it gives Higuruma the extinction sword thingy. Like, you know how Higuruma is able to basically exterminate any person that he has with a death penalty. Like, if he slices them once, they're just insta dead. So they was able to get that. And at this point in time, they think that they're able to get his curse technique, that they're able to also confiscate that. But we learned later on that we're going to know what happened, what went wrong. But one thing I also liked was the fact that Sukuna talked about, I heard the domain's rules inside the boy. So once again, it reaffirmed that anything that Itadori experienced throughout all of JJK, Sukuna also heard that. So that's why he knows so much about these other people's abilities. Like, for example, he's going to know about Ino. He's going to know about all these other people that he's been close with, or Itadori has interacted with in some way because of him being inside of him. That's also funny, because remember how Sukuna and Gojo fought, and Sukuna knew like everything about Gojo's technique, and that's because he was inside Itadori and was able to hear all that stuff all that time, and then also learn it from just seeing Gojo through Itadori's body himself. I thought that was really, really cool, and it just shows like Sukuna being inside Itadori this entire time was beneficial to him, besides him just being able to like reincarnate, but also be able to learn about all these people's abilities that he's gonna have to fight later on. And so after Higuruma gets the Executioner sword, he's talking about like, oh man, I think that Sukuna lost the 10 Shadows technique in the fight against Gojo. It took Malevolent Shrine, so there's no way that Sukuna keeps his curse technique, where like this is a great advantage. And then right when that happens, they all like realize, like Sukuna and Higuruma realize that his curse technique wasn't confiscated. And so right when that happens, he instantly activates his slashes. And luckily for Higuruma, Kusakabe got in the way of the attack. And then we learned at the end of the chapter that if the target of punishment is carrying a curse tool, then confiscation applies not to a curse technique, but to the curse tool. And that's the end of the chapter. I do not like that this entire time that we learned about Judgment, that this was not a condition that was ever laid out upon. Like, I feel like that's my main problem with this, that if this was like hinted at beforehand, or told that, oh, Judgment views cursed items higher than curse techniques, I feel like this slot choice or whatever wouldn't feel as bad. But for me, because this came out of nowhere and there's never been hints of this, from my, like, I don't believe there was any hints of this. If there was, let me know down in the comment section. But I don't believe there's any hints of this. So right now, this kind of comes out of nowhere, and I don't like that. Because I really wanted to see how Sukuna would fight without his curse technique. He doesn't like spam his curse technique a lot. Like, he doesn't spam it where it's like, oh my god, I wish he would use something else. Like, Sukuna will fight with the hands and shit like that. But I really wanted to see how he was going to have to get over all of them without using his curse technique and just using the curse tool. But I think that's my problem with this, is that I wish Judgment showed earlier that it takes priority for curse tools and curse techniques. But it's even crazy for some people. I feel like if Judgment determined like what's more dangerous to a person, because some people don't have crazy curse techniques, I wish that Judgment would like choose, if he was doing this whole like, oh, curse tool or curse technique thing, it would be cool that he could determine which one he wants to take depending on how dangerous that person's curse technique or curse tool is. For example, imagine if Mai had the curse tool that Sukuna has now, and we already know Mai doesn't have a crazy curse technique. Her curse technique is not that crazy. So imagine Judgment determined that like, oh, your curse tool is more dangerous than your curse technique, so I'm gonna take that instead. I think that would be cool. But the way that Judgment always takes the curse tool first over the curse technique, especially when it comes to someone like Sukuna, whose curse technique is way more dangerous than that curse tool, that's what gets crazy to me. Also, before we go to the next chapter, Kusakabe is a real one. I ain't gonna lie. After watching the anime, while I'm watching Shibuya happen while I'm reading the manga and stuff like that, I forgot that Kusakabe is actually like kind of fire and sneaky underrated. He has crazy feats. For example, managing to get out of the way when Sukuna told him like, you can leave now, after the whole like fire meteor thing during the Jogo fight. And then him being able to actually get in the way of Higuruma and the slashes, being able to protect him. And we learn next chapter that he even used like a simple domain to like protect himself against the slashes. He is so cool, and I don't think he has a curse technique at all. He's just that guy. I think he uses like shadow style or whatever, but that's not like a curse technique, I believe. So he's just that dog, and I like that a lot. So we get into the next chapter, which is 246, and everyone's like freaking out, like, oh shit. Even Higuruma's like, my lack of combat experience is showing, like, this is bad. And then everyone realizes that, like, oh, like, his curse technique didn't get confiscated. And then we have a moment where Sukuna starts, like, thinking. Like, he starts thinking about everybody, like, oh, man, everyone's improved. Kusakabe is weakening my curse technique with a simple domain, so they're reducing the damage. And then Kusakabe is even thinking about like, dang, I just almost died. And then he keeps on thinking about Sukuna's technique, like how he has cleave, dismantle. And then he starts talking to Higuruma like, yo, I'm gonna protect you with my life. And then Higuruma was like, sorry, I got the death penalty, but confiscation target is cursed tool. And then Kusakabe was like, it's fine. We still have the executioner sword. I'm still gonna protect you. And so after that, they all start running their hands, right? So Chozo immediately starts to like try to shoot a piercing blood at Sukuna, and Sukuna just immediately weaves that shit, and like I think he literally like threw his whole hand inside of Chozo, just put his whole hand in there, right? And then we see Ino pop up with Nanami's weapon, the one that he's always used, his curse tool, and we see he tries to he attacks like Sukuna, like attacks his arm, and then as soon as that happened, we see Nanami's curse technique activate, and then Sukuna realizes like, oh, that curse tool has Nanami's curse technique in it. And we all know that if a curse user uses a curse tool, right, and they constantly put their like curse energy into it, it can get the abilities of a curse user. Nanami uses curse tool all the time with his curse technique and used all that, and then after he died, his curse tool basically absorbed his curse technique after death, which I thought was really, really cool, because I remember they talked about that a long time ago, and it's cool to see that, like, to see that again. And so right when that happens, and the Sukuna like kicks him back, and then like he actually survives, which is cool. Like, Ino, I be forgetting that Ino's not kind of sorry, because I remember when we watched him in Shibuya, he basically like, got fucking cooked by Toji, which makes sense. Which makes sense, but sometimes you see a character and then get cooked by another character, and you're just like, dang, they must be weak as fuck, but then they're actually not, because I think they say Ino's supposed to be like grade 1 or something like that. Like, he's actually like sneaky strong. And so after Sukuna kicks him away, right, Itadori and Kusakabe start getting attacked by Sukuna, and then Sukuna ends up actually grabbing Higuruma when Higuruma misses an attack with the execution sword, and Sukuna just like fucking throws that man, and then tells Itadori like, can you keep up? And so Sukuna starts running after Higuruma after he threw him, and then everyone's telling Itadori like, go Itadori, like you gotta run, because Itadori's like obviously the fastest one there in their group. And so Itadori tries to chase Sukuna, and then he's like, oh my god, he's like fast, like he's like speed blitzing Itadori, which is crazy, because I don't think anyone in the show so far that's been like on Itadori's like level has speed blitzed him this bad, bro. Which everyone, reminder that Sukuna is not just only one of the greatest cursed like technique users, reverse curse technique, but also like one of the physically like probably the physically strongest sorcerer. And so after Higuruma gets thrown into the building, he actually flashbacks to how they talked about how they're gonna save Megumi, and they found out, they theorized that without exception the executioner sword kills anyone it cuts, but only if they have a death sentence. So if we give Sukuna the death sentence and then I attack him with the execution sword, it's only gonna kill Sukuna, not Megumi, so it would actually separate the two, which I thought was a really, really cool way to try to save Megumi. At this point, I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work, but that's a nice, cool plan that makes sense. We also see a moment where Itadori and Higuruma start talking about how he feels like he has to die in this fight. Like, there's no way he's gonna survive, and that he wants to die for everyone there, especially Itadori. We go back to the present, and we see that Higuruma activates domain amplification, and Sukuna realizes, like, did he neutralize my technique? And then after, the narrator says, less than 2 months have passed since Higuruma awakened as a sorcerer. Since then, his growth has been extraordinary, so Sukuna was fascinated by the executioner's sword shining brightly again, guaranteed to kill, and by the man with talent equal to Satoru Gojo. And that's the end of the chapter. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, Higuruma, like I said, is not the problem I have. He's so cool. I think this whole moment right here where this guy barely got his curse energy less than 2 months ago, but it's like he's developing at such an extreme rate that his talent is comparable to Satoru Gojo. Not his strength, his talent, being able to, he first got, I believe, his domain expansion and had to work his way back to get his curse technique. And I just like that we're seeing Higuruma do shit, and hopefully he doesn't get fucking killed next chapter, because every time a character does something cool at this point, it'd be like, dang, they get fucking cooked the next chapter. But like I said, I like the chapter. I think it's cool. I like seeing this whole big fight against Sukuna. I just wish that the whole Judgment reveal got shown a little bit earlier, or hinted at, that it prioritizes curse tools than curse techniques. I feel like that was such a weird thing, and just a weird plot twist that's never been hinted at, and I feel like it's kind of Gege pulling that shit out of his ass. I kind of wish they was hinted at earlier. But that's basically everything that happened in the last 2 chapters. I'm very excited for the next chapter. I want to see what's going to happen. I want to see how Sukuna is going to deal with the executioner sword, and how Higuruma is going to try and get this shit off, and the whole team. But thank you guys for watching the video. Leave a like, subscribe me for more content like this, and hit that bell post consistently. Let me know what you think about the last 2 chapters. Do you like the whole Judgment thing? Do you like how Sukuna's handling everything? Let me know down below, and I'm going to see you guys next time.